Ready? Yes, I'm ready to go live. Okay. So let me come on up. Okay, let's hear you, Pastor Yuri, so that we can make sure that we have our sound.
1, 2, 3. Sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay, how's that sounding?
He sounds good over here.
Okay, very good. Okay, let me come on up here.
5.
Okay, excellent. All righty, so here we are. Hey everybody, how you doing today? We have got to talk about these law cases that are before us. I think that they're very interesting, and certainly we need to know. Look at the Kyle Rittenhouse case. That's being handled in a very interesting way. It seems like he's being fast-tracked toward an acquittal. And Ahmaud Arbery, his killers, well, I don't know if they're going to be fast-tracked toward an acquittal, but they are certainly being given all the breaks. So, Pastor Yuri, wouldn't you agree with that?
Yeah, the management of the trials by the judge is curious indeed. That's for sure.
Well, he will be back, Pastor Yuri, who's also a lawyer, will be back to discuss that with us, but we have a tremendous panel. We have two Wisconsin state legislators. I think it's important for us to get more and more of our state legislators involved in our conversations, because so much of what we're dealing with is controlled at the state level. Something we talk about all the time. Many of us don't want to vote down ballot, Pastor Yuri, but that's where the work is done. The most powerful man in Illinois politics, Mike Madigan, did not leave for a long time. But when you understood what he controlled, like he said, you can have Washington. People in Illinois live in Illinois. How about that? So there's something to be said for, really understanding that, because in fact, we send people to Washington from our state capitals because that is where the districts are made. So we're going to have State Senator Lena Taylor, who is running for lieutenant governor in the state of Wisconsin, to give us her sense, and of course, State Representative Lakeisha Myers to give us their sense of what's happening with the Kyle Rittenhouse case trial.
60 seconds.
It's a very, very interesting trial, very interesting, and of course, they have their own take on it because, even though the Black population in the state of Wisconsin is very small, it's concentrated in certain spots like Milwaukee, and they have their own views of what's happening. So it's C.K. Hoffler will be with us, and of course, Todd Yuri. So we can't wait to talk about that today. And the latest, of course, on COVID-19 and infrastructure. So
10
here we
seconds.
go. Needed to come up just a bit.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Welcome. Happy Monday, November 8th, 2021. Just 2 weeks away from, is it 2 weeks? Yeah, it's 2 weeks away from Thanksgiving. I love this time of year. I love it. How you doing, everybody? I'm Santita Jackson. This is the Santita Jackson Show, coming to you from WCPT, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio. The voice of progressive Minnesota. We've got a lot to talk about today, so I want you to call me. What do you think about the stories that kind of bubbled up over the past few days since we haven't been together? Of course, I was with you on Keep Up Alive yesterday, but I want to know what your thoughts are about the infrastructure passage and the fact that they did not couple it with Build Back Better, so that's still being negotiated. What do you think about that? 773-763-9278. 773-763-9278. You can also text me at that number. I want to know what your thoughts are. And then, of course, we're looking at the Ahmaud Arbery case, the McMichaels, who killed him. I mean, what about that? What about Mr. Bryan, who was helping the McMichaels along? What about that? It seems that this trial and Kyle Rittenhouse's trial They're being handled in very curious ways. I just heard Pastor uh, Todd Geary, who's going to give us the good news in a few minutes, talk about that. So we've got a lot on our plates today. So I want you to call me, text me at 773-763-9278, 773-763. WCPT, and let's get going, everybody, with some of these headlines. In Chicago, it's going to be a really nice day today, 64 degrees, mostly sunny. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 56 degrees, mostly cloudy. Beautiful days, everybody. Well, the Bears are going to be playing the Steelers tonight, fingers crossed. And the Ravens, well, they were triumphant over the Vikings. I know Pastor Yuri's excited about that, but folk up in Minnesota, just hold on, hold on. Things can get better. The NBA, the Nets will be playing the Bulls tonight, and the Timberwolves will be playing the Grizzlies. And in hockey, well, Minnesota was triumphant over the Islanders 5-2 yesterday, and Chicago, well, they were triumphant over the Predators. What is going on, everybody? Well, it turns out that U.S. land borders are open to vaccinated tourists from Canada, Mexico, on today. What does that mean? Historic restrictions that limited travel over the past 20 months have been lifted. That means Canadians and other visitors flying from nations like China, India, and Brazil can reunite with family after many months looking for shopping deals and to attend some sports games and on and on and on. So what does that mean? We're going to be talking with Dr. Deborah Furholden about that, what it all means, what it means to be vaccinated, but maybe you don't need to take the test. I want to get some details on that, everybody. Everyone's talking about the concert tragedy in Houston. Authorities say that the criminal investigation into a crowd surge that killed 8 people, everybody, and injured dozens more on Friday evening at the Astroworld Festival at NRG Park could take weeks. The crowd of 50,000 people was packed so tightly that as headliner Travis Scott took the stage, concert goers were crushed and trampled as waves of people moved toward him. You know, and that is a common occurrence at concerts of that ilk. You know, it's not like you're going to see Roberta Flack or Aretha Franklin or Barbara Streisand. These people are standing and they rush the stage. And then these tragedies can happen. We will be looking into what has happened there and praying for those families. Someone as young as 14 was at the concert and was killed. God bless them. The House has passed the much debated $1 trillion infrastructure bill after months of tense negotiation and despite pushback from progressives. The bill already passed the Senate in August. Once President Biden signs it, federal money will soon flow to repair the country's potholed roads, aging airports, crumbling bridges, and antiquated railroads. I must say, the American Society of Civil Engineers has said that it will take at least $20 trillion to get America's infrastructure up to speed. So think about that, everybody. The U.S., again, is opening its doors. Are you ready to receive some of your relatives? Are you ready to travel? We're going to see how that all goes, everybody, as we continue to move forward. So let's go to you, Pastor Todd Geary. Pastor Geary, what's on your mind today? We do need some good news. You got some good news in the NFL yesterday. Hey.
Well, I'm trying to make sure that I don't disturb my friends to the north, so we'll just hold that for a moment. The opening up of borders to let family members come has not been my issue. My family members are all inside the borders. They were coming anyway, so I had to go ahead and get ready because Thanksgiving is coming. But that's a whole other thing. Santita, I hope you're well. Hope all is well with your listening audience. But let's go ahead and get down to business. Good morning, Chicago. Good morning, Twin Cities. Time to get up. Time to get moving. It's Monday morning, but guess what? If you can hear me, you're alive. Put your feet on the floor. Feel that cool towel coming back up to the bottom of your feet. And then get that morning beverage going. Take a deep breath of life. Fill your lungs and get moving because you're on an assignment, and your assignment is to make the world better. So go ahead and get to it. To my friends up in the Twin Cities, hey, what can I tell you? I can fit this in, Santita, what happened yesterday because it goes with this morning's message. But let's get to it while you all are getting ready to get out to work. You know, yesterday, indeed, the Ravens played the Vikings here in Baltimore, and it was a great game. course, it was probably greater for us because the Ravens actually won. But here's the thing, Santita. You know what was so important about yesterday's game is that it was the Ravens' first game back after their bye week. Yeah, they had a bye week. And a bye week in football is a necessary break because as the schedule was getting more full and teams were being added to the league, they had some imbalance in the scheduling. And so they needed to create a pause during the course of the season to make sure that everything ended up at the same time in the same way. Well, the bye week is shifted in time to be an opportunity for teams to take a break, to get players to heal, to allow teams to kind of get back in a posture so they can return to winning. It's a bye week. And actually what I wanted to say to all of you this morning is you need a bye week as well, but it's a different kind of bye week. It is a bye week where you rid yourself of stuff that is hindering your ability to win. What is the stuff that's weighing you down, holding you back? Because at the end of the day, I think our bye has to be tied to how we prune. Yeah, I'm actually talking about horticulture this morning, because Henry Cloud, a great psychologist, wrote a book some years ago called Necessary Endings. There's some stuff that we have to get rid of if we're going to live our most optimal, successful lives. And here's what he reminds us of. In that book, he talks about pruning. Now, I'm not a gardener, so please don't get it twisted. But I know folks who are pretty good at it. And they remind us that pruning is necessary for three reasons. It helps to foster the best buds because you can only sustain so many blooms. You can't keep carrying the luggage of yesterday's success only so far. It ought to inspire you. It should not burden you. The other thing is it helps you to eliminate sick branches, things that are not going to help you get where you need to go. And finally, it makes space. You got to create room for new growth. And so if we consider what this means, that means that we have to be willing to let go of some things, to say bye to some things, to bid farewell to some things, so we can actually make room to embrace new things. There are new opportunities out there. There are new dreams to be pursued, new successes to embrace and enjoy. But you can't do it if you're still trying to drag with you all of the stuff that you've been carrying. And it's not always bad. Sometimes these are good reminders. But even in the Christian scriptures, there's a conversation that Jesus says, that the divine actually prunes us so that we can have new growth, that we can have new opportunities and success. What is the thing that you want to embrace, but you're cluttered? Yeah, you're cluttered, and you need to get rid of some things. Go ahead and declutter. Enjoy and embrace the success of a prior season, but take your bye week to get ready for new wins and new successes, because I promise you, there are new victories with your name on it, but you got to make room to be able to embrace them. So I'm still cheering you on. Hey, go ahead and take your bye week. To my friends to the north, look, I didn't set the schedule. It just kind of worked out that way. But guess what? You can win too. You just got to build in your bye week. Have a great week. Go change the world. I'm rooting for you, and I'll talk to you next week.
Amen. Amen. I love it. I love it. I love it. I am learning about decluttering, everybody. Ooh, ooh, ooh.
We just lost Dr. for holding on far back.
Ooh, so everybody, please declutter. You know, it's one thing in, something else has to go out. I looked up and I realized that I was just collecting things. And, you know, you can collect not just material things, but spiritual things that you don't need. A lot of pain, a lot of stuff. Let it go and make room for something great. Dr. Deborah Verholden, epidemiologist, Associate Dean of Public Health at Michigan State University. We've got some big news today before we bring on Dr. Shanina Knighton at the bottom of the hour to talk about sneezing in our masks. Oh my goodness, I can't wait to hear what she has to say about sneezing and coughing when you're wearing a mask. Dr. Deborah Verholden, let me start with you. Today, we've got some good news. It turns out that the U.S. is opening its borders, right, to Canada and Mexico. And then tucked in the story is this will also allow in people from Brazil and from China, because, you know, when you open up to Canada, you know, people come in. That's really a portal for China. And then a lot of people from South America can come in through Mexico and on and on and on. But what's curious to me is the requirements regarding vaccination. Okay. In some instances, you need to declare your COVID-19 status. You need to have had a test like 72 hours before. Or the first thing is, you just need to be vaccinated by an approved vaccine. Can you explain if that is the safest way and what all of that means, Dr. Deb?
I love it when smart people like you ask me questions like this, because I know that you know the answer. And it's important that we talk about it and that people understand. So this is my story. I'm sticking to it. The most important thing is your COVID status. From a public health perspective, when we talk about preventing the spread of this virus, the single most important thing for that will be knowing people's COVID status so we can prevent people who are active cases from infecting others. A part of that whole system of keeping people protected, helping to drop the transmission rate, helping to prevent people from severe symptoms and stopping them from ending up in the hospital is vaccination. So I'm saying vaccination is a real close second runner right on the heels of testing. It's like right there. But when you talk about if you were to get on a plane and they said you could only know one thing about the person sitting next to you, would you want to know their COVID status or their vaccination status?
COVID.
I wouldn't care whether or not they had the vaccine. I want to know, do they have COVID right now? Because that's what's putting me in harm's way, and that's what's putting others in harm's way. So I think people are really, hanging their hat on the vaccine because, in fact, what's going to help us is as many people who are eligible for vaccinations to be vaccinated. But if we really want to prevent global spread, person-to-person spread in settings like planes and workplaces and churches and all of those kinds of settings, what we are going to need to know is people's COVID status. So it doesn't diminish the vaccine. It's just knowing if somebody is vaccinated or not is not going to stop them from affecting everybody on the plane. Knowing whether or not they're COVID positive will. So there's your answer.
Okay, well, given the fact that that is not exactly the case, should we be concerned? Because now, they're adding thousands of flights. Well, hundreds of flights to get thousands of people moving, because the airlines have taken a big, big hit.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, the airlines can get in line. Everybody has taken a big hit.
Everybody.
Most small businesses took a major hit. You know how many? There was a guy here in Flint, and I just, as different as it is living for me in the Midwest, coming from the East Coast, there's something really great about that Midwest, hard-working spirit. And Flint is definitely no exception. This place is filled with people with big dreams, a lot of grit, a lot of will, hard-working, good, decent people. This brother opened a restaurant about 2 months before COVID started. And I have watched him keep redoing his business model, making it a carry-out, changing the menu every day, delivering food, delivering cocktails. Just doing everything to try to keep the doors of this place open. But only now for things to actually be open. And, something is going on weird with the labor market right now. I'm talking to people and finding this in a lot of places where we've got more positions than we have people who want those positions. And it's not just a me thing. It's not just a Flint thing. I'd be curious what a labor expert has to say about this. The fact that we have more people right now more jobs, it seems, than people to fill those jobs.
I think there's an elephant in the room. The elephant in the room are vaccine mandates, and no one wants to talk about that.
Yeah.
And that's a real big issue. And people are leaving their jobs or they're being fired from their jobs in droves. And we're going to have to talk about that. It's opening up a lot of jobs. You have a lot of job openings, but you don't have the qualified people you can't just walk into being a nurse. You got to go to school for that. You can't just become a fireman overnight. No, 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 no. You take training,
Yeah.
and the best firemen and police officers, and on and on and on, firemen and women, they have experience. So, I think that, there's a lot. I mean, that's why when I look at the media, I just say, really, you're not being serious because you're not asking the right questions. You're not asking the right questions.
Yeah.
And you're not giving people all the pieces here. It's just like even as to hear you as an epidemiologist say, hey, wait a minute, we need the Swiss cheese model. And I saw a Swiss cheese model on Twitter the other day, and you know what was missing, Dr. Deborah Verholden? They had vaccines, they had physical distancing, they had hand washing, they had all of that, but they did not have therapeutics. They did not
Yeah.
have early intervention. And that for me is problematic. If you go to the
Yeah.
doctor today and they tell you you have cancer, Dr. Deb, they send you to an oncologist. They say, okay, this is what you need to do. But they keep sending people home who have COVID. They just send them home. I'm like, what? You just waiting for me to get real sick? What is that? I just,
Problem that we're facing, and the other thing that we're dealing with right now related to that is as the numbers in many places have gone down from hospitalizations for COVID, they've gone up for other hospitalizations. So hospitals are still, we got this like RSV outbreak, which is basically like a common cold. It looks like we've got perhaps a slightly more harmful form of RSV out now. We'll see more is coming out about that. But people are in the hospital for other things and taking up hospital beds for other things. And so, the reality of it is hospitals, regardless of why, it doesn't serve us ever for our hospitals to be extended.
Well, why do you think that is happening? I mean, are we ignoring other symptoms? Are we ignoring other illnesses because of the fear of COVID?
I think it's a couple of things. I wrote on this earlier in the pandemic. I call it the collateral damage of COVID. What I think has happened is we took our eye off of the ball. So we said, generally, yes, we know that we need, primary care, preventative care. We need early screenings, early detection. We know these things. But then when COVID hit, we shut down all primary care. We shut down all preventive care. And then it took a while for most medical providers to gear up and move their operations over to virtual, where they could start to do telehealth visits and meet with patients by phone or by video. And in that time period, other important things like other childhood vaccinations. We have so many kids that miss their regular vaccinations, and we're working really hard to try to get those kids caught back up. The big danger was we run the risk of something like measles, reemerging if we have too many kids who've missed their measles vaccine. And so the problem is, we skipped a lot, missed a lot of those things. And so now it's like a catch-up game. People didn't stop developing cancer because of COVID, but people did stop getting diagnosed. So the cancer is still there. There will just be a delay in the diagnosis.
And isn't that dangerous?
It's better. It is dangerous that with all of these, that's the whole point in primary care, preventive care, and in early screening and detection. For almost every disease I can think of, the earlier you catch it, the better the prognosis.
I mean, that's what they told us, when our parents were diagnosed with COVID. They said the earlier we catch this, the more quickly we can treat it. I said, wow, I wish they applied this across the board, not just to COVID, but to everything.
Yeah.
I don't get the sense that they're doing that. Oh, another question about them opening the borders. We're seeing COVID cases rise in Europe, and yet we're opening the doors to Europe. Now, they haven't mentioned Africa or, opening the doors to India. I mean, that's like the second most populated country in the world, which that sounds a little crazy to me. And it's also, becoming a very wealthy country, at least at the top, not certainly not at the bottom. Do you think is it smart, or are we just making a money decision? I have a couple of minutes before we go to break. I mean, the numbers are on the rise.
Money decision about
COVID. I mean, we've got more cases in Europe. They're rising, and yet we open the doors to them.
Well, I talked a bit about this. There's a really great article written by a colleague who's the dean at Brown School of Public Health. And it's something like, when will the pandemic end? And basically, it's sort of like when we accept that we're going to be living with this. It's nothing magical is going to happen. We're not going to get to some super low number. We're not going to have a cure. It's just going to quietly sort of start to get back to business as usual. Because the reality of it is, we have all the basic things that we need. We need to work on supply chain management. We do still have some issues there, but those are getting worked out. And what we, basically have to do is figure out what will it look like living with this virus. That's what's next for us.
This is what you've been saying.
What will life look like living with COVID?
This is what you've been saying.
Which is figure that out. Yep.
Which is why you said you wanted us to bring Dr. Shanina Knighton, who we're about to bring up, because we need to understand how to prevent infection, how to live as healthfully as we can. I mean, of course, our guide in our health journey is Dr. Deborah Furr Holden. And, and we're going to be talking about the vaccines that adults need. Yes, you need them. You need them. Going forward, we got to talk about that. So much to talk about on the Santita Jackson Show. Call me at 773-763-9278. And, of course, call the doctors so you can ask them your health questions. Back with the Santita Jackson Show in just a minute. Dr. Deb?
Yes, ma'am.
I just got a brilliant idea. I'm not going to save it so much because we're on Facebook Live. There's a form I've got to send you, and I'm going to fill it out by hand and then send a picture. How about that?
That's perfect. Yep.
It just hit me.
Yep.
Girl, I've just been tired. Okay.
But I know, and the one form you're talking about, I know it's wonky. I had to do it for somebody else. And I had to print it out, and then I took a picture. Yeah,
because I couldn't do it on the computer. But just let me know if I did the other ones correctly.
Yeah, it wasn't fillable.
Okay.
Yeah, Dr. Knighton somehow figured it out, but she's younger than me, so her brain probably is a little sharper.
Honey, she's much younger. She's much younger than I am, and she's much sharper. So God bless her.
Yeah,
I'm gonna take that picture. That's what I'm going to. I'm gonna take that picture.
Right.
Sending Dr. Knighton through.
It all works, right? It all works.
Please.
It all works.
Here she is. Now that we're talking about the young gun here, Dr. Knighton.
Good morning, Santita and Dr. Deb.
Good morning.
Good morning, Dr. Knighton. Oh, bless your heart. Well, you know what we're going to do.
How was the weekend?
Infection prevention is next door. She does. She has that deal. The infection prevention is next door. It's like the girl next door went to nursing school and got certified. It's like so nice to have one right next door.
I thank you for bringing.
Like, wow. Touch her.
Yeah, but you know what? I want to thank you, Dr. Deb. I want to thank you, Dr. Knighton, for availing yourselves. But, it was Dr. Deb who's been looking up under these hills and rocks and, just underneath everything to try and reach people. Because when she and I first started this, it was really trying to help people to combat not just hesitancy, but a lot of doubts and fears and a lot of misgivings. Mm-hmm. So it's you need to have someone you can trust, someone you can talk to. And she's been very honest about her journey. And then, she was becoming a grandmother. So that adds another layer of, she's got even more skin in the game because she's now got a baby to protect, her baby to protect. But knowing, because I had not heard about an infection preventionist in my life. And she said, no, we've got to bring her in because she's going to say things to you that are going to really shock you. And every day you do that. So what I'm trying to do is move this to 6:45 because I've got to do a little bit of discussion about the infrastructure. But if we don't get Robert Patillo up, I'll be able to move past 45. Okay. But Dr. Deb wants to talk to us. Not Dr. Deb. Dr. Knighton wants to talk to us about sneezing and coughing in our masks. It's happened to everybody.
Oh, yes, I can't wait.
Back in 60.
I can't wait.
You know it's happened to everybody. You know it's happened. You know it. So
Well, I flew this weekend, and it was terrible because I said, ooh, Dr. Knighton would get me. I have a bag of masks. The last time I went to get tested, at the testing site I went to, they give you a bag of masks when you leave, which I thought was really great. And I have a lot of masks. And when I went to leave my house, I was going to a conference. The conference was mask required. It was in Florida, too. I think Florida is back with a mask mandate, which is interesting. They sort of did that real quietly. Yes, everywhere inside the hotel you had to have on a mask. I saw very few people violating that, and I did see a fair number of staff, gently approach people, say, hey, you have to have your mask up or you have to be in your room.
10 seconds.
Oh, stand by. We're coming up. And Devin's going to let me know if we get Robert Patillo.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. Of course, we're going to be talking about the Ahmaud Arbery case, that trial, and the trial of the men who killed him. Will they be exonerated? How is the trial being conducted? And Kyle Rittenhouse, this baby-faced young man who killed two people and shot someone else. What about that trial? Cannot wait to talk about that. We've got Dr. Deborah Holden. You know what time it is. First thing in the morning, she gives us our information about our health, not just COVID, but our health, and how we can have equal access to equal high quality health care, and what you need to be doing. So many people are ignoring symptoms because you think every symptom is COVID, Dr. Deb. I think that's part of it too. If you have an ache, we're all afraid that it's COVID. But that having been said, Dr. Knighton, is an infection preventionist, this research scholar, registered nurse. She's from Case Western Reserve University. Dr. Deb, she said she wants to talk to us today about coughing and sneezing while masked. I am all ears. Dr. Deb, did you say this you want to hear? Oh, gosh. Okay. What is the deal? Because, sneezes come out of nowhere, and so do coughs. Sometimes they just catch you by surprise. I don't even know what to ask you. How do you take the mask off? Do you keep it on? Do you switch the mask out afterwards? How do you do that?
So this is the problem, and like the conundrum of the whole mask with sneezing and coughing, right? So I just want to talk about what's happening. So some individuals believe that just because they have the mask, that they don't have to cover their nose or cover their mouth when they're sneezing and coughing when they do have a mask on. So that's one thing. The other piece of it is think about that connectivity. We know that the nose, the mouth, they're connected, right? Even the eyes, even though the eyes are not up under the mask. So can you imagine, we know that coughing is going to put out droplets. We know that sneezing is going to put out droplets. And if you are coughing and let's say you are sneezing and you use etiquette and you're putting your nose into your elbow even with the mask on, you're still at risk of droplets, let's say. They're your own droplets, but you're still at risk of droplets being inside of your mask, right next to your mouth, right? So, and it's just to just be a little bit graphic, it's almost as if your snot, is coming in contact with your lips. So what I tell individuals is to make sure, especially because we are in the cold seasons and it is more likely, even to their fall allergies, is to make sure that whether you have a disposable mask or you have cloth mask, you have more than one. And there's no other way to really alleviate it. But it is something that is happening right now. So I know that it seems like it should be bigger than that, but honestly, that's it and that's all. But I think that we don't think about that a lot of times because we've seen individuals where they'll take their mask down and they'll sneeze, or they'll take their mask and they'll move it from their mouth and then they'll just cough. If you choose to move your mask from ear to ear so you can cough or sneeze directly into your elbow, somebody's going to look at you crazy, especially in the era of COVID. But I caution people to be kind, because think about that individual that might have that big sneeze that's going to require tissue because of the potential amount of drainage that may be coming from their nose. And think about how that drainage would be then going all the way from their nose and rest it.
What are you supposed
I
to?
know it's not something we think about. Yeah.
No, it's not. It's nothing you think about. So, okay, should we be carrying extra masks throughout the day? I mean, just what do you
Say that
do
one.
when you sneeze? How should you sneeze? Should you cover your nose and your mouth as you do if you were unmasked? I mean, take us through that process.
So when I know that I'm getting ready to sneeze, and sometimes sneezes can catch people off guard, but when I sneeze, I'm sneezing directly into my elbow. And when I'm pressing into my elbow, your cleft, what you would call it, which is the area right there above your lip, right?
Right.
When I'm sneezing, I literally press that part down into the muscle on my elbow, just to make sure that I can contain, if it is going to be a major amount of snot, it would be contained like right there, and it wouldn't run down to my lips. I don't just freely just blow into it, because I already know that by the time, if I'm already sneezing and it's a big sneeze, those droplets are already going to travel over to my lips.
Okay. Do you
So
take?
I make sure that I'm pressing. I'm making sure that I'm pressing down. If I'm out in public, I keep my mask on, of course, right? So if I'm out in public and I know that I'm not, like, let's say, in an isolated area, because there are times, like, let's say if you are in a setting and there's not a lot of people, and you can go over and find yourself like an individual corner just to be able to, like, sneeze directly in, that's still going to be droplets that may be suspended in the air more so often than it would if you were unmasked. So I would recommend to individuals just to make sure that you're taking an extra mask. The other piece of it is still think about how those droplets are still between your nose and in between your lips. And so it is still recommended, or what I would recommend is making sure that you have something, even if it's some sort of skin sensitive wipe, a baby wipe, something to be able to just wipe down that area just in itself. Many people don't think about this, but this is why we say don't share utensils, right? Don't share utensils, don't share vaping pens and things like that, because you don't know who sneezed in their mouth. Who sneezed in a mask and may have droplets or drainage all over their lips because their nose and their mouth is connected up under the mask. And so it's just certain things that we don't think about, even when we're kissing our spouse, right? We don't think about the fact that they had on their mask and it's up under their nose and it's up their nose and their mouth being connected and a potential of them sneezing and then possibly having droplets on their lips, that could have come from their nose, because it is all connected. And so it's just to consciously think about what is happening when we are interacting with someone that has a mask on all day and they're saying, hey, honey, I'm going to come and get you. We actually have a thing in our house where when we come in, we remove our mask and we clean our face.
Okay.
So we have to all clean our face when we come inside homes, and then that'll be when me and my husband greet each other. Again, because if I know he's been up under a mask for X amount of hours per day, if I've been up under a mask for X amount of hours a day, some of us, too, will say, oh, that wasn't a cough. How many times have y'all been around somebody that you saw them cough and you looking at them crazy, but they swear up and down it wasn't a cough? And I'm like, I know what a cough is, but they'll swear up and down it's not a cough, or they'll swear up and down it's not a sneeze. But we know that even if it was a small sneeze, a big cough, or big cough and small sneeze, it still was a sneeze or a cough. And so they'll downplay it and make it seem like it wasn't that big, but it was still a cough, and they may not cover up, their nose or their mouth. And so for those very reasons, we make sure that we're cleaning our faces before we interact, and we kiss and things like that. Even like with my kids, they have to do the same exact thing, because they too are more than likely going to also come in contact with their face, sneeze and cough. For them, I've actually seen kids do it. They mouth chew. They'll chew on the mask as if it was a T-shirt. So back in the day, or not even back in the day, but some kids chew on their T-shirts They've now taken the mask itself and they'll put the mask in their mouth and they'll start chewing on it.
Ooh.
And remember, I was having a conversation before about mask mouth syndrome and the possibility of people like not breathing properly through their nose and then breathing only through their mouth, and having decay build up. Bacteria still is something that is prevalent in the mouth by the millions. So if you're not practicing proper mouth hygiene, which is brushing your teeth, making sure that, you know, you're flossing and removing things from your mouth, then you, of course, are putting yourself at risk for that moisture and that bacteria, like moisture and the bacteria to just be in one place, which may not necessarily be good because it'll still give you like that same feel of mildew or mold, especially if you're not changing your mask out daily. And this is something that people are not doing. I would say change it out daily, but change it out even if it becomes moist, if you think that it was at risk of becoming contaminated for those very reasons. And so we do have that issue as well from kids. And then I also, with the mask, being from out of the nose, if you're talking to someone and their nose is outside of their mask, they've already probably breathed or sneezed down onto the outside of that mask. And if you know that you're going to observe it, like you observe them touching their mask or trying to pull it up directly from the center, all of the droplets from the inside of their nose or their mouth is likely already on the outside of their mask, which is now being transferred to their hands. And so these are mechanisms that we typically don't think about. But think about the nose just resting right there over the mask and all of the droplets that are falling down directly on the front of that mask.
Call us at 773-763-9278. What questions do you have? 773-763-9278. You know, someone just said on the chat line, I think it was you, Catherine. Was it you, Catherine, or was it Carol? I think it was Carol. You said that even sneezing in your elbow gives you pause. What's the point of sneezing in the elbow or coughing in the elbow?
It is to make sure that the droplets don't travel to someone else.
Okay.
Because what happens is it's spread. So droplets, remember how before early on they were saying, physically distanced by 6 feet?
Mm-hmm.
It's known that that's like about the average that droplets can travel when coming from your nose or coming from your mouth. So sneezing into your elbow contains those, it contains those germs. That's actually been changed from years ago where people would say, oh, cough into your hands and sneeze into your hands.
Mm-hmm.
Well, your hands have to touch stuff. So you don't want to sneeze or cough into your hands. You want to do it into your elbow because it helps to contain some of that distance that those droplets would typically spread.
Dr. Deb, we're about to move on to Attorney Patillo to give us some information, to give us an update on this infrastructure fight, because that's really what it still is. Dr. Deb, how can we, just in about a minute, get this message out to our children and to our teachers and just to the broader public? Because you were right. This kind of information, it needs to be shared so we can cut down on spread, Dr. Deb.
Yeah. No, I think it's really great. And Dr. Knighton has a whole set of videos and infographics and other materials that she's created to disseminate in communities that make this stuff easy to understand for people. It's very visually compelling.
Mm-hmm.
The words are very easy to understand and easy to follow. You know, this is one of the areas where I feel like we really have not done a great job throughout this campaign is the health literacy. And the health education, just letting people know. I love it that she took us all the way back and said, let me show y'all how to wash your hands.
Yes.
Because I know y'all been doing your best. But let me take it back to basics and show y'all how to actually wash your hands in a way that will actually have them be clean and decrease your risk. You know, what's the point in doing all this stuff if you're not going to get the maximum benefit because you're not doing it properly? So we do have good tools available, and there is good science around how you both get this information to the right audiences and get it to them in a way that's compelling and that will shape and influence their behavior.
Dr. Deborah Holden, epidemiologist, associate dean of public health in Michigan at Michigan State University. Hopefully, I will see her in a couple of days. I'm going to run up there. Can't wait to see my girl. Haven't even physically met her yet, but she's like my sister here, and so is Dr. Shanina Knighton. Although we did meet And she's just as cute and precious, just as pretty as she sounds, everybody. Just the preciousness. We love her. But she is Dr. Knighton and giving us all this information. But stay right here, Dr. Deb. Stay right here, Dr. Knighton. Dr. Deb, say hello to your favorite person in the world, or at least one of them next to your baby, India, uh, Robert Patillo. Go on and say hello, Dr. Deb. Dr. Deb loves to hear you cut up, Robert. Okay, so talk to us. The House, of course, he's the Southeastern Regional Director for Rainbow Push, based in Atlanta, and he is also the host of his own show on WAOK. Boy, is it a great show from 1 to 4 Eastern Standard Time every Sunday. Well, the U.S. House on Friday night passed the bipartisan physical infrastructure bill, but guess what? They didn't get support from the squad, from a few members of the squad, 6 of them, and they did not couple it with Build Back Better. But what did we see? What happened on Friday, Doctor? Excuse me, I was about to say Reverend Doctor, but no, your attorney, Robert Patillo. What happened on Friday?
Well, what happened was we got hustled. We got screwed. We got sold out by the corporate Democrats, and this is going to be an issue going forward. Because let's understand that your everyday listeners understand this, but you never know when you have somebody who's just tuning in for the first time. So in the spring, we had 2 bills. We had the $1.2 trillion fiscal infrastructure bill, which passed the Senate. They got 19 Republicans to support in the United States Senate, bipartisan agreement. And then you have the human infrastructure bill. That's the bill we actually all cared about, which was $3.5 trillion at the time, which came down from the original $6 trillion price tag that Bernie Sanders had put out there. That's the transformational New Deal bill. That is all the things the Democrats ran on in 2020. That is what 80 million people supported. That is 2 years free college. That's dental and eye care being included by the government. That is universal pre-K, universal child care, the environmental regulations. All those things were included in the $3.5 trillion deal, which was already cut down from the original $6 trillion that it was. So House progressives understood that if they voted on the physical infrastructure bill first, that the corporate Democrats would screw them over. They knew that, and so they held strong, saying that they would not support the physical infrastructure bill unless it was bundled with the human infrastructure bill, which they had campaigned on for 2 years, and which, as I said, 81 million people turned out to vote in favor of. What Pelosi and Schumer and Biden and Manchin and Sinema did was they allowed Sinema and Manchin to simply hold up the human infrastructure bill for 6 months. And even now, instead of Nancy Pelosi coming to the table, standing strong with the Progressive Caucus and the people that put them in power and in office, they sold out those progressives and found 13 Republicans who were willing to support the physical infrastructure bill in the House, instead of forcing those 2 Senate Democrats to bend the knee and actually support the human infrastructure bill. So with the support of those 13 Republicans, they no longer needed the Progressive Caucus. They would rather make a deal with those 13 Republicans than make a deal with their own base, and instead of making a deal with the people who put them in office. And the reason that you got 19 Republican senators and 13 Republican House members to support the physical infrastructure bill is that it is a complete giveaway to special interests, to lobbyists, to construction people, to the fossil fuel industry, for anybody who's involved. It's basically a trough of money poured out there, and all the Congress people and senators can roll around it and slop it up for their districts. So that's why they support that. So when it comes to giving money to corporate interests and lobbyists and oil companies and builders and campaign donors, you can get bipartisan support on that. When it comes to health and vision and eye care and universal health care and child care for working mothers, well, then, oh my God, how are we going to pay for this? I don't know what we're going to do. And so what we see is that this is the problem that we've always had with the corporate side of the Democratic Party. During election season, they call these Republicans MAGAs and racist and misogynist and xenophobic and everything except the devil incarnate. But when it comes down to whether you will rather make a deal with progressives who want to move the nation forward are those same Republicans that you just badmouthed. Pelosi, Schumer, Biden, Manchin, and Sinema decided that they would rather work with the Republicans than work with the people who are actually trying to execute the policy agenda that got them elected in 2020.
We're talking with Robert Patillo, Southeastern Regional Director for Rainbow Push, host of his own show on WAOK, Atlanta's iconic talk radio station, and it's from 1 to 4 every Sunday. We're talking about the infrastructure bill. What did we get? What did we not get? Why did 6 members of the squad say, I'm not going to vote on this. I'm not going to support this. And then some people are giving them a hard time. They're like, no, we did not, you all have not operated with us in good faith. This is not a good thing. Now, but now there's some other people who are saying, okay, look at what we did get. And what do you say to them?
Well, it's great. The physical infrastructure bill is fine if it's bundled with the human infrastructure bill. Why should Joe Manchin and Christian Sinema be able to completely, first they gutted the human infrastructure bill, dropping from $3.5 trillion down to $1.75 trillion. Then once they got it down to $1.75 trillion, then they said they wouldn't support even that. So it's reported that during the negotiations between Senator Sanders and Senator Manchin, Bernie Sanders said, well, I'm comfortable with $3.5 trillion. And Joe Manchin held up 2 fingers and said, I'm comfortable with 0. And so they were never negotiating in good faith. All this time of conversations and going back and forth in meetings, they were never, ever going to actually support paid family leave for working mothers, universal child care. They were never going to support the things that actually helped Americans. So, yes, the investments in infrastructure or physical infrastructure are great. But as Reverend Jackson told me when we were in Washington, D.C. a few weeks ago, what's the point of fixing a bridge if you're not going to help the people living under the bridge? And these corporate Democrats have decided that they would rather fix bridges because you have a lot of lobbyists in the concrete industry, you have a lot of lobbyists in the trucking and transportation industry, you got a lot of lobbyists in the shovel making industry or whoever else that they want to help. And so you can pass bills for that. But when it comes to working families and working mothers and the elderly and children and the disenfranchised, all of a sudden we're out. These people were never negotiating in good faith. They never had any intention of doing it. It was a hustle from the beginning. House progressives were right to hold out, and they've been proven right by the outcome of this. And I'm hoping that more people will hold the corporate Democrats responsible in the next election, because right now they're doing a victory lap, but the victory lap isn't victory over Republicans because those Republicans work with them. The victory lap is against House progressives.
And everyone, you need to understand that the pharmaceutical industry is likely to shatter its lobbying record as they have worked to undermine this social spending bill. You need to understand that. Know that 1 in 4 U.S. senators hold fossil fuel investments. Know that. So it's not just Manchin and Sinema. It's just corporatists who are in both parties who are taking food out of your mouth, food out of your baby's mouths, food off your table. They're diminishing your education opportunities, your retraining, your job retraining, your job training opportunities. They're the ones who are moving you, fast tracking you into poverty. And that is what is so insulting to me, Robert Patillo, when I look at all of this. And when they blame progressives for the holdup, I say, well, hold up. No, we cut a deal. It's the corporatists who jammed us. This is what has happened. And what's amazing is that when you look at the state that Joe Manchin is from, for example, Mississippi and West Virginia, they're twinned. They're the biggest welfare states. And I'm not upset with them. They need it. But good grief. He's a fossil fuel company owner. How is that not discussed? Robert Patillo.
And I think that's part of the conversation that has to be had. When we're having this $3.5 trillion infrastructure deal discussion, do you really think that the senator from the coal mining state is going to vote in favor of clean energy? It never was going to happen. So this entire conversation was always pointless from the beginning. And all it did was hold up things by even trying to pretend that they were negotiating in good faith. It's one thing to say that I have an actual reason to be against these bills. Joe Manchin didn't even pretend to have an actual reason to be against those bills. Kristen Sinema, if you asked her, well, what exactly do you want to negotiate? She would run away and hop into an elevator.
Unbelievable.
There was a reporter who had said, well, where are you at right now on this bill? She says, I'm in the Senate. And then they said, well, what do you want? And she hopped in the back of a car and drove off at warp speed. It was never going to happen. And all they did was draw this out so that they could make sure they could cut the background deal. The whole time, the Manchin and Sinema, and I think I've said this a few times, Manchin and Sinema are executing the Biden plan. This is what Joe Biden supported the whole time. And the entire period of time, the last 6 months that they've been going back and forth with Manchin and Sinema, it wasn't about getting Manchin and Sinema on board. It was about making enough time to get enough Republicans in the House willing and ready to sign off on that infrastructure deal. And as soon as they got those 13 Republicans ready to sign off on the infrastructure deal, they scheduled a midnight vote. They got it done on a Friday night when the news cycle would be dead, so there wouldn't be really critical discussion on it, and they rammed it through. And think about the leverage they took away from African Americans and from Latino Americans by ramming this through, cutting this corrupt bargain with the Republicans. But the only thing that forced them to even talk about the Build Back Better plan and the progressive agenda was those House progressives, the quote-unquote squad, holding up their free money giveaway. So now, what leverage do we have for voting rights? What leverage do we have for the George Floyd Justice and Policing bill? What leverage do we have for universal child care? Those sorts of things. They took they cut out every bit of leverage that progressives had just so they could cut this deal. And I'm very much ashamed of the Congressional Black Caucus on this because they should have stood strong with the squad and said, well, if we have time to kowtow to Manchin and Sinema, good luck passing anything without our support. It always seems that we don't stand up the same way.
Well, they're not the Black Caucus of our childhood, certainly of my childhood, and certainly before you were born. It's not the same group. It's not. Let's talk about the Ahmaud Arbery, his killers trial, the Mike McMichael and Mr. Bryan, and Kyle Rittenhouse. Interesting. Back in just a minute, Santita Jackson Show. I knew you'd break it down, Robert.
We talked about this on my show yesterday, and people don't understand how we just got hustled because the corporate Democrats and their corporate media are using this as almost a victory lap.
Absolutely, and we don't get it but to be fair, we're being told something else, and we're being told that the problem is with the corporate Democrats. Quite frankly, they are the problem, and until we stop buying that, this is where we're going to be. Because many of us have bought that hook, line, and sinker. Not everybody, but enough of us. We've been told if you just shut up and just let this go, what do you want?
Well, I was having a drink with one of my Republican friends this weekend, and they made a similar point, which is that because corporate Democrats and the corporate media, one of the few things that Trump is very right about is about the fake news media and kind of the interplay between fake news media and the corporate parts of both parties. And so when you control the corporate news media, you control the messaging most people are getting. You don't get real progressive voices in media.
There.
Those people still have to pay bills. So the voices you get on MSNBC and CNN, you also, when you're in D.C., see them at dinner parties with those same corporate Democrats and those same corporate Democratic donors. So the messaging you get is in line with everything they're saying.
And I think you all need to know that. Look, they're all sleeping under the same quilt. Okay? Let's just put it that way. Our grandmamas put it just a little bit differently, but they're under the same quilt. Be very, very clear on that. And it's a bipartisan betrayal. And Daryl, did you call it right? Of course. Absolutely. Absolutely. And like I said, if you put it like this, my brother Jonathan puts it this way, not about this, but about other things. He said, when you look at folks and when you realize that they're taking food out of the mouths of your babies, they're taking food off of your table. If you need to be retrained for your job, 2 years free community college, that's off the table. Really? Why? And the Democrats could have sold this differently, but they had no intention. I'm with you, Robert, of ever passing this. They didn't have to start with $3.5 trillion or $6 trillion. They could have said, "Do you want 2 free years of college?" People would have clamored toward the Democratic Party or toward this bill, and they would have supported it. Do you need paid family leave? People would have clamored toward this bill, and they would have flooded the Capitol Hill with phone calls. But the Democrats did not want to do that. They did not do that, and here we are. Oh, it's infuriating.
And we talked about this. We talked about this throughout the process, that it didn't seem like the Democrats were doing the things that you would normally do to try to pass big legislation.
Absolutely.
Just go back to Obamacare. When Barack Obama was making the case for Obamacare, it was an all-out PR push. Like I said, Warnock was doing a sermon in the pulpit on why we need a public option. Back when he was when he was
at Ebenezer.
Pastor at Ebenezer. Mm-hmm. Yeah, every talk show, they were pushing the ideas of the public option to build public support behind it. You got none of that with Build Back Better, and the reason is because they didn't want to pass it, because the corporate Democrats were never going to do it, because it was going to impact those tax cuts that Trump had just pushed through in 2017, and there ain't no way in hell the money people are going to let that happen. So it was a hustle to begin with, and they've just been tagging us along and dragging us along for 6 months while they tried to get Republican support. The minute they got it, they passed it, and you're not going to hear anything else about Build Back Better.
How do you think that? Because I don't understand what they're doing, because President Biden's popularity is continuing to drop. It's almost like he's in free fall. I mean,
it's one of those things where I think in their minds, once they can just shut up the conversation about this, then they can move on to the rest of the stuff they want to do. And I think that's why at this point their whole goal was just to shut all this up, get something passed, say we passed the most transformative.
All right, Santita sending Reverend Yuri through, sending Chaparral through, sending Senator Taylor, Representative Meyer, and Attorney CK. Everyone's here.
Okay. You can't see this as anything but a disappointment.
Shameful. It's shameful. It's shameful. And we're going to pay for it. And you're going to pay for it with the younger voters and with the voters who are most desperate. Hey, everybody. Senator Taylor, Lena for LTGOV. Lena, LENA, the number 4, LTGOV. She is running for a lieutenant governor of the great state of Wisconsin, and she has a real shot at it. And so everyone, really go to Lena for LTGOV.
60 seconds.
Stand by. Hey, CK, how you feeling today?
Good morning. I'm feeling better. My voice is still recovering, but I'm feeling great.
Okay. Bless your heart. We got a lot to talk about. Madam Lakeisha. All right, stand by.
Good morning.
Good morning. We're going to get right to it because we got a lot of ground to cover. And you all got it. Ooh.
Good morning, all.
Good morning, everybody. Is it Chaparral, you there?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. I'm gonna come to you after I knock out a couple of headlines.
Okay.
Ten seconds.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate, to a place of love. It's not too late. Gotta save the children. We can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. Happy Monday. It's November 8th, 2021. Coming to you from WCPT, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio. My brothers and sisters to the north in Minneapolis, St. Paul, sending Chad and everybody all my love up there today. And the sounds of blackness and Gary Hines giving us, you can change the world and you can change the world. That is what we aim to do today on the Santita Jackson Show. Call me at 773-763-9278. 773-763-9278. You can text us at that number as well. Want to hear your thoughts. We've just heard Robert Patillo talk to us about the infrastructure bill. We're going to talk more extensively about that tomorrow and why it was not twinned with Build Back Better. And what does all of that mean? Is Build Back Better effectively dead? I got to talk about that. But right now, we want to talk about the Ahmaud Arbery, the trial of his killers, of the McMichael father and son duo, and Mr. Bryan, who helped to egg them on as he was filming and helping to drive this young man off the road into his death. What about that, everybody? And what about Kyle Rittenhouse, who is being, of course, he was driven across state lines from Illinois into Wisconsin, and my goodness, he killed two people. He tried to surrender to the police. The police ignored him while he was carrying an assault rifle. You can't make this stuff up. And so there are a lot of moving pieces here. And we've got the candidate for lieutenant governor of the great state of Wisconsin, State Senator Lena Taylor, is on with us. And we're going to be talking with her and this all-star panel in just a few minutes about these trials that we are looking at and why they are of such moment in the United States today. Indeed, they're being covered all over the world. In Chicago, we're going to have a high of 64 degrees, mostly sunny. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 56 degrees, mostly cloudy. The NFL, well, the Bears will be playing the Steelers today, and the Vikings, well, they fell to the Ravens. The Ravens 34, the Vikings 31. NBA, the Nets will be playing the Bulls here in Chicago tonight, and the Timberwolves will be playing the Grizzlies. And in hockey, well, were there any fights? Of course there were. But the Minnesota Wild, well, they were triumphant over the New York Islanders 5-2, and Chicago's team 2-1 over the Predators. U.S. land borders are open to vaccinated tourists from Canada, Mexico, as of today. Historic restrictions that limited travel into the United States are set to lift today for fully vaccinated international visitors with proof. That means that Canadians and other visitors flying from nations like Brazil, China, and India can reunite with family after many months. Look at shopping deals. Of course, you have to put that in the news report, and attend some of these sports games, everybody. So what do you think about that? Because everyone doesn't have to, it's going to be kind of uneven. So we're going to have to continue to look out for that and see what's going to happen here. President Biden has hailed his infrastructure win as a monumental step forward on Friday night. On Saturday, he said this, but on Friday night, they passed this historic infrastructure package, this $1 trillion infrastructure package. Now, the American Society of Civil Engineers has said that we need $20 trillion, but we did get one. How is that going to go? Well, they didn't get the support of the squad, of at least 6 members of it. They called this foolishness. They said you were supposed to twin this infrastructure package with the social spending package, but that did not happen. So we're going to continue to follow that story as we go on. You know what? It's that time of year, and everybody loves celebrations by us by Chaparral. I must admit, my family, we get a lot of her food during the holidays, and we order real late, but she's able to get it through for us, and many of you have ordered too. Chaparral, what's going on?
Good morning, Santita, to your wonderful audience. Last year we kicked off our holiday season meals, and we're doing it again. So we're here for Thanksgiving to take care of all of your needs. We're doing turkeys. We're doing smothered chicken. We're doing smothered beef. We're doing mostaccioli, Cajun pasta, greens, ham, whatever you need, as well as also our fabulous desserts, our caramel cake, German chocolate cake, banana pudding, peach cobbler, whatever you need for your holiday season, please give us a call, 708-526-4546, or visit our website at celebrationbyus.com. sanctifiedbyus.org, and we are going to get that done for you. We are taking limited orders because we already have quite a few this year. So call us early, get your order in, and we are making deliveries on Wednesday and pick up on Thursday. So we will see you soon. Thank you so much, Santita.
And what's that number again?
708-526-4546 or celebrationsbyus.org.
Everybody, you don't want to miss that because I know the Jacksons love it. And I always catch her coming in. My brother Yusuf calls late every year, but I see her and that wonderful husband of yours, Brent, carrying food into the house, and we eat it all. And of course, you got to make the banana pudding for my father. That's it.
Yes.
We just love you, Chaparral. Thank you so much. Celebrationsbyus.org, everybody. You all wanted me to bring her back this year, and so that is what I'm doing. Go on and get that order in, everybody. Get those orders in as soon as you can. What about the Ahmaud Arbery case? What about the Kyle Rittenhouse case? I think we need to label this correctly because it's not the Ahmaud Arbery case or his trial. It's the trial of the McMichael family, the father and son, and Mr. Bryan, who chased him down and killed him. I think we need to get that right. Kyle Rittenhouse, 17 years old at the time, wanted to be a police officer and loved law enforcement. And somehow or another, he got out of state into Kenosha because he wanted to protect Kenosha. And in the aftermath of the unrest that was unleashed behind the shooting of Jacob Blake, who was paralyzed by the police officer who the U.S. Justice Department refused to prosecute. Okay. And he went in to protect the city of Kenosha, which is overwhelmingly white, not just in terms of phenotype, but philosophically. It's a very, very white place, not the warmest place for people of color, particularly for Black people. That having been said, it is what it is. And as he was guarding the streets, he shot 3 people, killed 2, tried to surrender to police, and the police waved him on while he was walking down the street with an assault rifle. You can't make this stuff up. So if you would, Attorney C.K. Hoffler, just do me a quick favor, set the table on the Ahmaud Arbery case, and I'm going to bring on State Senator Lena Taylor so she can let us know what's happening with Kyle Rittenhouse up in Wisconsin. CK.
Good morning, Santita, and I apologize for my voice. I feel great, but my voice doesn't sound as great. But to set the table, I'm glad that you have labeled this case the McMichael's trial, as well as Willie Bryan, because that's what it is. This is not a case where Ahmaud Arbery should be on trial, just like it was not the case where George Floyd should have been on trial. But yet we find ourselves in a position where Ahmaud Arbery is indeed going to be on trial. He has no ability to speak and defend himself. All we have are the videos and testimony. And the reason for that is because the McMichaels and Bryan will be using as a defense self-defense. They're going to rely on an old 1863 pre-Civil War statute in Georgia that actually allowed folks, vigilante citizens, to do a citizen's arrest of someone who they, quote, reasonably suspected of trying to escape. Well, we know what that was about. That was about slaves trying to escape. So this is the law that was in place at the time that Ahmaud Arbery was chased down like a rabid dog. Not a dog, because the dog would have been treated better. A rabid dog, a dog that was a danger to society. He was chased down like someone like that. And they're going to plead self-defense because they're going to say, once they chased him down with their pickup trucks, cornered him in, had rifles, he was struggling with them, and this big, burly Black man was a threat to their lives. Though they have assault rifles, they have weapons, and that's why they shot and killed him. That is going to be their defense. And to boot, we have a jury that the judge himself has said he believes that there was intentional discrimination somehow in the process. That comes from the court, the top officer of the court presiding over this case. And yet the case is going forward with 11 white jurors and 1 Black juror. And, of course, they have 4 alternates. We must watch this case closely. We must take away from this that it's critically important for us to always show up for jury duty. And we must continue to put in check those who we elect as judges and others, because this is completely unacceptable. I've been practicing for almost 35 years. I find it to be heinous, unacceptable, offensive that a judge would say, and I have much respect for judges. I really do. They're at the top of our profession. But it pains me to hear a judge say, well, I see there's some intentional discrimination here, but we're going to go forward with the trial anyway. That defies jurisprudence. That defies everything that is just. That defies why we went to law school. And so I want this country to look at this case and see what it is for people, how many people have been, to have a case tried with intentional discrimination surrounding it from top to bottom, head to toe, because that is what we're going to see. But as a trial lawyer, I do have hope that perhaps there will be a modicum of justice for Ahmaud Arbery's family. We must pray. We must continue. There was a prayer vigil for the family yesterday that Transformative Justice put on, and we must pray for justice for this family and hope that even though there's racism and discrimination surrounding the jurors, as the judge has said, who's there, that they will find justice and look at the facts and the evidence in this case and convict all three, not two, not one, but all three of the defendants in this case, so that we can have some justice, modicum of justice, for Ahmaud Arbery and his family.
Everybody call me at 773-763-9278. Patricia from Colorado. I'm going to come to you in a hot second, but I wanted to hop over to the Kyle Rittenhouse case, because these cases, CK, are happening at the same time. Reverend Dr. Geary, Robert Patillo, State Representative Myers. And it's just very interesting that these cases are happening at the same time, and we're seeing how justice is unevenly applied. We're seeing a whole lot. What about this cherubic-looking killer? I mean, because he killed two people. State Senator Lena Taylor, who is also running to be Lieutenant Governor of the great state of Wisconsin. Talk to us about this case. What are we seeing here?
Would you like me to talk to you about it?
Of course,
first?
yes, Lena Taylor. Of course, Senator Taylor, please.
Well, wonderful. I'm sorry I heard Representative Myers' name first, so forgive me. Well, let's say that the first thing that we're talking about with this case is the same thing that you just heard from CK. The kind of bias that has been set in the foundation of the case. And what do I mean by that? First of all, you have a jury that doesn't look like some of the other individuals in the community, meaning the jury is basically white. The other thing that you have that is huge, and I want to put an explanation point where CK did also, the importance of individuals participating in jury duty. But I want to be clear, your clerks, your individuals who are often elected and helping to run that court system in one way or another have a direct relationship with who gets chosen to even be on a jury. You know, in our state, if you have a clerk that is not using driver's license, it's going to make it even, and voting, it's going to make it harder for individuals of color to be chosen. And if they are using people with driver's license in a place where we have 1 in 36 that are incarcerated, African Americans, then you know that what also happens is we're not even on the list of driver's license necessarily to be able to, and people that don't have the driver's license, we're not on the list for that. So jury selection and jurors being put on the panel to deal with the case, we see that same thing that you just heard about in the Arbery case, in the Rittenhouse case. The other thing that you see that I think is very sad is the kind of racism that you talk about from the individuals defending the killers. You have in both situations attorneys that reflect that, where one situation is in the attorneys canceling out jurors that are of color. Well, guess what you have in the case in the Rittenhouse case. What you have is a attorney standing up already using the N-word over and over in the courtroom. Court not stopping that. Court also saying that the victims won't be called victims. Instead, they're going to be called rioters. That is a bias that's been set in the court case. And all of that foundation right there, not to mention the overcharging of what charges Rittenhouse is even dealing with. And then let's add in the media, the bias of the media, and always trying to make him look like a choir boy, instead of the killer that he is. That is another bias. And the fact that that's constantly being put out in the media. It reminds me, of another case that happened in our area where, and you guys just mentioned it, with the family that is on trial, and Mr. Bryant that's on trial in the killing of Mr. Arbery. Well, that same thing happened in Wisconsin with 3 young ladies. One was with her friends, and the other 2 plotted to kill her. And they called the whole case the Slender Man case. I can't even remember the girl's name because they called it the Slender Man case for so long. So we have that same thing happening, in these matters. So the bias is, the institutionalized racism in the justice system is just intertwined. And as a lawyer, I get that is our reality. I get that our justice system, is not as blind as I wish it was. But I'm like CK. I'm trying to have some level of hope, right? That some justice will come for the 3 families, 2 of which lost their loved ones. And I'm hoping that it's going to come because they look more like Kyle Rittenhouse than they look like me. But the system, I can already see it stacked against justice already. But what I love is Justin Blake's family. Jacob Blake, the young man who was shot by the police officer while the officer was holding his shirt and shooting him 7 times in the back in front of his children who were in the car while he was unarmed. That gentleman's family has been, with other people from Kenosha, committed to be outside. You mentioned transformative justice and how they've been outside and how they did a prayer vigil. Well, family, they are out doing similar things in Kenosha to keep it in the limelight and make sure that people know that these families deserve justice also against Rittenhouse.
Let me go to Patricia from Colorado. Patricia, what's on your mind today?
Yeah, good morning. I'm calling about the young guy, Rittenhouse, and also Congressional Black Caucus didn't do their job. They traitors. But Rittenhouse, they should charge his mother, too. She came, brought him across state line with the weapon, and she got away. She's a criminal, too. Can you imagine there was a black mother, but her black son crossed state border, any state? I don't know why they're not charging her. And I have a question. Is that bill back better? Is that bill totally done? They're not going to work for the health, for the people at all? That's my question. But yeah, the Congressional Black Caucus need to step down. They should be ashamed of themselves.
Well, we should force them to step up.
I don't know why that lady's not being charged. His mother brought him for a state line with a weapon. Can you imagine if it was a black mother did that? Please. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Mic drop on that. I mean, but you know what? You can't even find that in the press reports about this case now. Senator
right, exactly. Taylor. It's not being continued to be spoken about. This is Senator Taylor, and that sister was right on. Because the truth of the matter is, if it was a black mother, shucks, I've seen people charged with party to a crime for much less. And so you say, why? This is the kind of prosecuting system we have here. I mean, we're in a state that leads in the nation in mass incarceration of people of color, of African Americans in particular.
State Representative but why isn't it? I mean, it is confirmed that she did drive her son into the state and out of the state.
Absolutely, it is. It has been confirmed that she did that. She has not been charged with anything. I read the trial digest every day. They've even talked about the contradictions that are already coming out. Because now the Rittenhouse's defense is saying, oh, well, he had permission. He and the friend had permission to go and secure these car lots that had been vandalized the night prior. And the owners of the car lot said, no, we didn't give them permission to go on our property to secure anything. I would think that if any car dealership, they have insurance on those cars. The lot had already been burned the night or two before, so why are you worried about that? So, I think about it when, my sister did something when I was younger, and then I would try to jump in. My mother said, I don't need your help. I can parent this child myself. I don't need you to help me do that. So we didn't need Kyle Rittenhouse coming across the state line talking about he was going to secure somebody else's property.
At 17?
Why are you there? At 17. What do you go do as a child? So, and then his defense is saying, oh, he was, what was the language that was used? He's young and impressionable. Young and impressionable has been used to describe him and his mental state. Yes, as a 17-year-old, you are young and impressionable. But if your parent drives you across the state line, that gives you permission to go and do whatever it is to be done. So you had help in being young and impressionable. So this is the lifestyle. This is the type of house. We always talk about what kind of parents are these and where do these children come from? They start at home. So, his parent brought him to the situation. His friend had his gun there waiting for him. And so he went on about his, merriment, if you will, in the midst of what was going on. The police have also, just to Senator Taylor's point, they've already interviewed an officer that has testified. He said, oh, well, it was a war zone in Kenosha when he was trying to turn himself in. So is that why you gave him a bottle of water and let him keep walking?
And did not arrest him.
He was armed?
What is that?
Didn't arrest him? Didn't ask questions about why are you so young with a weapon?
Oh.
People are yelling and telling you this person just shot two people and just killed two people and wounded another?
They're pointing at him.
Yeah.
And they're saying, this guy just killed two. He just shot two people. It's him. And the police officer waved him off. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Reverend Dr. Yuri, I cannot wait to hear what you've got to say. Chaparral has called back in herself. She wants to weigh in. I don't know if Robert Patillo is still there, but boy, oh boy, what a panel. And of course, you've got the candidate for lieutenant governor for the great state of Wisconsin, State Senator Lena Taylor. Lena for LTGOV, everybody in the house with us today. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a few minutes. My dear Abraham, thank you for sending love to my mom. She is doing well. Raising Cain, so she's doing really, really well. I could have rhymed, but why should I do that? She's doing it. She's doing it. God is good. God is good, 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 good. God is good all the time, whether you like the results initially or not. God is good, but I should say, I'm glad that God gave us some grace to let us keep our parents just a little while longer. Wow. So there you have it. So thank you so much. And thank you all for your continued prayers for their health and strength. Thank you so much for that. It means more than we could ever say. Just really. That's more than I can say. Reverend Dr. Yuri, you there? Is Reverend Dr. Yuri there? Ooh.
It says he's there.
Okay. Reverend Dr. Yuri? Is Robert Patillo still there? Ooh.
Yes, they're also here and they're also on.
Oh, okay. Hey, everybody, you still there?
Yes, we can hear them.
Can you hear them now?
Okay, now I can hear them. Okay,
I've
very
got to
good.
put the phones back on. I'm sorry.
No. It's okay. It's okay. Everybody, please go to the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe. Well, that's right, everybody. So this is a whole lot, everybody. I can't wait to get your thoughts. And then, of course, Chaparral wants to jump in. We thought we were done with you, Chaparral, but we're not mad about that. We love it.
She actually wanted to take my order for Thanksgiving. That's what she wanted to do.
What do you want Chappelle to make for you? Well, when she comes on, you can tell her.
Whatever Chappelle wants me to have.
What did she make for you and Reverend that time? The preacher's meal, the preacher's spread.
Smothered chicken and a whole lot of other stuff that just, you were giving out the number. I was like, 1-800-HEAVEN. Call.
Everybody, this woman can cook. Oh, ooh. I mean, I thought Reverend, I thought my father and Pastor Yuri were going to go to sleep in their chairs in the office. They were so happy. And does she
do orders across the state line? I need to know.
Well, you know, when she comes on, I'll tell.
Amen, because I want some banana pudding, Representative.
Let me tell you, her food is so good. She's part of our Thanksgiving meals now. Honest, it's good. Woo. And one year she made, and I kept those meals for a long time. And for my birthday, smothered pork chops, string beans with potatoes.
60 seconds.
Oh my gosh. Rice with gravy. Y'all, it was everything. And I had to take some to my parents, and my father was like, well, do you have some more pork chops at home? I had to bring him some more pork chops. Whew. I gave him like 4 or 5. I mean, and he didn't even stop until I put him in the plate. He just lifted it and just started eating it. Oh. Smothered, I promise you. So, but, you know, we will ask her. Because let me tell you, her food is out of sight. She cooks the way your grandmama or great grandmama used to cook. Oh, Joyce, thank you so much. Much love to my mom. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And that's right, Stanley. God's grace is sufficient, and that's what we've had. Well, you know what? We're gonna find out, D-Ray.
Change the world. We can change the world. We can change the world. Change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love. It's not too late. Gotta save the children. We can't wait. Let's change the world.
Let's change the world. The Santita Jackson Show on WCPT, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio. The voice of progressive Minnesota. If you want to stream us live, go to WCPT820.com or AM950radio.com and meet my morning stars on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel and on the Santita Jackson and Friends page on Facebook. But please get on over to that YouTube channel. We're trying to populate it, and you all have helped us so much. So we're talking about these Ahmaud Arbery, the McMichael Bryan murder trial. That's what it is. They are standing accused of having murdered Ahmaud Arbery. Let's get the language right. And of course, our own legal Q&A with CK every Wednesday here on the Santita Jackson Show and on WAOK. Tomorrow at 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And of course, Robert Patillo, who is your partner over at WAOK, every Sunday from 1 to 4. And of course, he's the Southeastern Regional Director for Rainbow Push and the Senior Vice President of Rainbow Push. Pastor Todd Yuri, Esquire, Reverend Dr. Todd Yuri, Esquire, is going to weigh in on this, on these cases. It's just so much to take in as we have Wisconsin State Representative Lakeisha Myers giving us more. Every time I talk to you, State Representative Myers, you drop more and more information about this case, as does State Senator Lena Taylor, who is running for Lieutenant Governor of the great state of Wisconsin. Can't wait to hear more from her in the coming weeks and months. Let me go to you, Pastor Yuri. It seems to me it just seems to me to be a great moment that both of these trials are going on at the same time. What is our takeaway?
So what our takeaway is that history has a way of repeating itself. This is not new to have simultaneous murder trials of white offenders taking place under the spectacle of kind of a moment of racial reckoning. And so for many of those who are in your listening audience today, it might feel a bit like deja vu, like we're reliving this moment. When you consider jury composition in Brunswick, and then you look at judicial error, almost obvious judicial bias, I would argue, in Wisconsin, I think you see these kind of remnants of just kind of an uneasiness that is like a knife in our gut, just coming back to real life. And so I think there's a fear. You can already see how the deck has been stacked to really kind of get an outcome that appears to be predetermined, right? So in Georgia, where the judge says, "Oh, I see obvious racial bias in impaneling the jury, but I'm going to let the trial go on because I'm going to maneuver this to avoid any review of my behavior as the one on the bench to make it look like somehow that I put my finger on the scale." But in reality, judges tip the scales all day, every day in courtrooms across the country. It is just under this spectacle that the error has to be more than harmless error if there's going to be an issue for the defendant. But let's also remember that the defendants in this case, this is the part that just kind of takes you back. These defendants are white defendants. And when it's depending on who's getting charged, it's going to determine what the charges are. It's going to affect who the jury is going to be. It's going to affect the judge's conduct or otherwise. And it's going to help shape, in many ways, how the public looks at this particular trial. And so if we look in Georgia, after the fact, Governor Kemp decides he wants to get rid of citizen's arrest, which was on the state books for decades. That's supposedly what the McMichaels and the Bryant were using as their frame to assault, confront, and kill Ahmaud Arbery that day anyway. And so when we think about it, what have we done? Have we gone back in time? Have we morphed back to the period of Jim Crow version 2.0 or whatever version this is? And in many instances, folks are walking away saying, oh, yes, absolutely, because we've seen this movie before. The question is, will the plot unfold as we've seen it unfold before, or will we finally get some indication that we're moving toward a more just society? And I think, not to put a pun to it, but I think the jury's still out on that question.
Robert Patillo, your thoughts before we go to the callers?
Well, particularly with the Arbery case, I think people have to, I think anybody who's an outside observer is going to get the same idea that I got, which is that the prosecution is not trying to win this case. Remember when the case was initially indicted on the state level, the Attorney General for Georgia appointed the African-American District Attorney from Cobb County, Joanette Holmes, to be the prosecutor and for her office to handle the case. And now, if you notice during the opening argument, the opening statements in the case, you did not see an African-American District Attorney there. The reason being that Joanette Holmes lost re-election, and therefore a woman by the name of Lisa Duncan Winsky, I think that's how you pronounce her last name, is leading the prosecution of the case. And because of this, speak with Barbara Arwine in particular, we saw during jury selection that they did not object to many of the racially charged questions the defense counsel was asking African-American jurors. How do you feel about Black Lives Matter? How do you feel about the social justice movement? Do you have information about, or have you seen the Ahmaud Arbery mural here in Glenn County? Those sorts of things that were used to strike over 50 African Americans who were part of the jury pool from the ultimate panel that was selected. You have 11 white women on the panel of jurors and one African American male. Of those 11 white women, I think it's 5 of them have either law enforcement or other backgrounds associated with it. You have 2 retired law enforcement officers. You have 1 retired military officer. You have a former 911 operator on the panel. 1 woman who said that she had previously been the victim of gun violence. All of them made it on the panel. That is normally immediately a strike for cause by the defense or by the prosecution if you're actually trying to win the case. Then to the point about the judge saying that this seemed to be a racially biased jury, the prosecution or the defense can always make a motion if they believe that a racially biased panel is put in place. If the defense makes a motion, that's called a Batson challenge, and then the judge has the opportunity to reopen the panel if they believe that they were that's a juror, a individual juror was struck on racial or other grounds. If the prosecution makes a similar motion, it's called a reverse Batson or a McCullough challenge, where they can do the same. That happened to be a trial at one point in time, so I know it's a possibility. The prosecution never made a McCullough challenge to say that they want to impanel more African Americans on the jury, or that they felt that the panel was racially improper. So everything we've seen thus far seems that they are trying to give themselves the out of saying, well, look, we tried our best, put together the best trial we could. They were acquitted, and we're going to leave it to the federal government to file hate crimes or to prosecute them for hate crimes. But we're going to let it go on the state level because ultimately it's still a Republican governor, Brian Kemp, a Republican AG, Chris Carr appointing a Republican district attorney at the time, Jordan Holmes, but now Lisa Duncan-Winsky, whatever her name is. So I think we need to monitor this case closely, but it doesn't seem that the prosecution from the beginning is trying to win it. And pretty much any attorney you know will tell you that the case is won and lost in jury selection, and this case may have been already lost in jury selection.
Chaparral from Chicago, what are your thoughts? And then everyone's going to give you their orders after you're done.
Yes, Santita, thank you so much for letting me come on and talk this morning, because I have been so enthralled with both cases since the trials have begun. And my observation from the Kyle Rittenhouse trial is that the state has not proven its case. The state has put on everyone who supports Rittenhouse, which is, to me, I'm like, okay, is he the defense attorney or is he the prosecutor? Because every witness that he has called, I think he called 11 or 12, have testified in favor of this self-defense defense that Kyle Rittenhouse is actually, seeing, stating that that's the reason why. But I can't see how they're going to tie it to him. They basically made Rosenbaum the person who was the aggressor, and Kyle could only defend himself with that. But I don't understand how the other two people got shot. And so the state has not made the case to tie this in to a rogue teenager going down here to kill people. They have not made the case. So Kyle Rittenhouse will be acquitted. He will get off. He's not going to serve any time. The Proud Boys are going to celebrate. It's going to be a big celebration. Now, in the Ahmaud Arbery case, what I noticed is that they're going to get off as well. I agree with Robert because you could tell just by the demeanor of Papa McMichael, who was knocked the hell out during the state's opening statement. He was asleep the whole time, and he has not a care in the world if he's on trial for murder, because he already knows that he is finna get off and won't have a care in the world, and he'll be at home for Thanksgiving, because the judge has already said that this is going to be over and done before Thanksgiving, because we're not going to prolong this case and this trial because we got to go eat some victuals. So, I'm sitting up here like, okay, you rushed to set this jury in a day, and now you're rushing this trial. So it tells us that the fix is in. And so I am not going to be shocked if all parties get acquitted, and this is business as usual. Thank you, Santita.
Well, hold on. Do you ship out of state?
Yes, I do.
State Representative Myers?
Celebrationsbyus.org.
Senator Taylor?
Now, what's the website again?
Celebrations by us.
Celebrationsbyus.org.
Honestly, I promise you it's worth it. I'm telling you, it's worth it. It's completely worth it. My father, every time he sees her, she's got to make a uh, what is it? Banana pudding for him. And then you just heard Pastor Yuri. He got all off subject. Just really.
1-800-HEAVEN.
I promise you. Okay, don't take it from me. Take it from him. That's right. And this is a preacher. People give them their best meals. Trust and believe, everybody. State Senator Taylor, is fixing? I mean, is that the sense that you're getting when you talk to people on the ground in Wisconsin? What are you hearing? And is there a difference between black, how Wisconsinites view this, and white Wisconsinites? Poor, rich, poor.
Most
I mean,
definitely.
what are you seeing?
Most definitely, there's a difference in the way that individuals view it. And, our bacon sensation there, cooking sensation there was definitely right when she said that the possibility of this trial, both of them, going in a way where no one gets convicted is definitely the way that people are also feeling on the ground, not just because of the setup that I spoke about, but when you also just consider how long the process has taken, when you consider that the young man was able to be out with the Proud Boys drinking in a bar. Okay, let's remember, 18 ain't 21, no bail jumping charges, nothing like that.
Well,
You know,
wait a
didn't
minute.
report his
In
address,
fact, hold
no
on.
bail.
They said that they were
Don't
not.
forget
That the judge declined to charge him with bail violation. You bring that up. He didn't. He did not tell them that they had changed the address, and the judge declined to charge him with bail violation. What's up with that?
When you get done, those are the biases that I continue to say that are stacked in this case. Those are the things that I see, not only as an attorney, but as somebody who lives in this state, somebody who's gone around this state, someone running for lieutenant governor in this state. I see the biases that exist. One of the reasons I'm in the race is because diversity is important. We do deserve to be able to have a voice. And we were the reason and are the reason that Democrats win statewide. And so it means it's important that we're in the room and that we're important. That we're important in the process, not as afterthoughts, whether it's in redistricting, whether it's in hiring, whether it's in distribution of funds, whether it's in dealing with the issues that make us the worst in the nation. For incarceration, to raise a black child, to be a black American, for home ownership, well, I don't know about home ownership, but for small business ownership in our city, we're definitely the worst. We don't even have 7% in our city. So the reason I'm in the race is because, one, we need to have an adult in the room, right, in Governor Evers, because without him, the Republicans would have just ran over us, like, flattened us out. Whether it was in women's rights to choose what happens to your body, or whether it was voting rights, whether it was bills that they did on election law and changing those and access to get to the voting booth, or whether it is in redistricting, where the Republicans have drawn maps that are not only not fair to competitiveness or partisan politics, so to say, but also we're not the numbers that are needed in order to have a VRA, Voter Rights Act, a set of maps that are not in violation of the Voter Rights Act is what I'm trying to get out, so that no one has to get in good trouble, like Congressman John Lewis would, be saying right now that we need to get in good trouble if they are in violation of the Voter Rights Act. So all that, those are the things that we have to fight against and more. And so having someone like Evers in place has allowed him to use his veto pen. Now, some people will say, well, Senator, are you always in agreement with the governor? I'm not. I don't think married couples are always in agreement either. But what I will tell you is that we deserve to be in the room. And we make it possible for statewide races to happen across Wisconsin. And it's going to be important to be able to be the first African-American woman to be a lieutenant governor, and only the third woman in the history of our state to be a lieutenant governor. And it's going to matter that I'm on the ticket. It's going to matter that I'm in the room. It's going to matter that we can pull people together around some of the things that, very candidly have divided us, including what we're talking about in this trial, this kind of hyper-segregation that exists where people don't understand the plight of people of color. it's going to be important, right, that we're in a situation where those kinds of things can be uplifted. And I believe iron sharpens iron. I don't mind having brilliant people like you have on this panel. You have brilliant people around you so that you can get it all. So I'm in this race to not only hold Governor Evers accountable, but hold the Republicans accountable. That's why I'm in this race. And I'm going to use agriculture, some of the things that are, like we just talked about, the wonderful food. Everybody can say, when it's some good food. So agriculture and music are at the base of my campaign because agriculture is the number one industry in our state, and I believe that it also can be a vehicle to help with violence reduction. It can also help with teaching self-sustainability and entrepreneurship. So it's at the center of my campaign, and it is a part of what we're doing when we go around to build relationship with rural and urban Wisconsin. So I hope that you will go to Lena, the number 4, LTGOV.com, and that you'll help us make history, that you'll help us make sure that our voice is in the room, and that you'll help us make sure that we continue to make sure that iron gets to sharpen iron so that as we win these races, that we are not forgotten after we do all the work to help get people elected.
Because CK, it seems that injustice is at the center of both of these cases. Maybe that's why they're so riveting at this time, because, we see a county that's 26% black, 69% white, and there's one black person on the jury. And the judge said, yes, there was intentional discrimination. That's why the blacks are not there. And yet nothing is done, CK. I mean, can anything be done now or later? I mean, how can this be? How can you see intentional discrimination and you do nothing as the judge? CK might have gone on, but let me ask you, Robert, how does that work? I mean, how does that work?
The issue is the judge does not have the power to intervene unless one of the parties makes a motion. So either the prosecution would have to make a McCullough motion or the defense would have to make a Batson challenge. But without the parties moving,
so it's okay.
Not simply intercede.
So so you're saying with prosecution and the defense, clearly this is okay to have this basically all white jury.
Exactly. The judge cannot intercede sua sponte. The judge cannot step out of his role as the arbiter of fact to become the trier of fact or become represent either party. So if the state has decided that they are okay with the jury impanelment, then the judge doesn't have any power to move without one of the parties moving. So it's not on the judge to make that motion. It's on the prosecution to make that motion. The judge can editorially say, as he did, this seems pretty racist to me, but he can't simply say, I'm going to impanel a new jury or throw the trial out or anything along those lines. So that's the limitation that we see, and this is why I said that I'm pessimistic, because it doesn't seem like the prosecution is trying to actually convict these individuals. Mm-hmm. It's like they're trying to just put on a show. How would you have two people who are retired law enforcement officers on a jury that is a case against a retired law enforcement officer, even getting past the racial component? How would you have a case that involves a 911 call and you have a juror who's a former 911 operator on the jury panel? That's not something that you do. And it's not as if they had a limited jury pool. There were over 1,000 people who were brought in for this. And to come out with this impanelment, we focus on the racial aspect of it, but there are plenty of other questionable jurors, even if you're going to have an all-white jury. Why would you have former law enforcement, former military officials on that jury when you're trying to convict former law enforcement? It seems like the fix is in from the beginning, but I try to remain hopeful. But this is not normal for jury selection.
I mean, Reverend Yuri, what should be done? The Transformative Justice Coalition is down there. They're asking for the Poor People's Campaign. Reverend Barber is going. They're asking for Rainbow Push Coalition and everybody to be down there. What can be done now? I mean, in Georgia, and I mean, just both of these cases are just boggling my mind.
well, you can't leave the cases to just happen by sleight of hand or under the cover of darkness, right? We've got to bear witness to the process from start to finish, because actually your presence has a lot to do with keeping folks really kind of credible throughout. The other thing is going to take you all the way back to a conversation we had last fall. What folks can do is remember the reason you end up in situations like this is because we get enamored by what's happening at the federal level. And to Lena's point, Senator Taylor's point, we forget about the importance of statewide races. The judge in the trial of the McMichaels and Bryant was appointed by Governor Nathan Deal. We've got to remember that governors appoint state judges when there are vacancies, and just like appointments to the federal bench, most people who are ever going to be prosecuted for a criminal trial are going to be prosecuted under state law. The other thing is when Robert mentions the prosecution, remember the prosecution is not some amorphous term. The prosecution is actually the state of Georgia. And when you think about how the government structure frames how justice is actually administered and meted out, it gives you a sense of how the deck is stacked against you should you find yourself on either side of the courtroom as a defendant or a plaintiff or a respondent, whatever the case may be. But we've got to remember that we have a commitment, we have an obligation to ourselves, not to be once every 4-year participants in this process. We got to show up whenever, as long as there's time on the clock, we got to be present in the courtroom, in the hearing room, in the state legislature, in the board of education meetings. We've got to be in all of it. Otherwise, it leaves the system to do what the system was designed to do, which is to protect itself, not to protect us. And so we've got to make sure that we don't give them a pass. So show up in Georgia, show up in Kenosha, sit in and listen. Let folks see you, because it does change the tone, the tenor, and most importantly, the content of what is often presented in courtrooms across the country.
Pastor Todd Yeary, Senior Vice President, Rainbow Push Pass, Senior Pastor of the Douglas Memorial Community Church. Attorney C.K. Hoffley, you there? I think so. And then State Senator Lena Turner, candidate for Lieutenant Governor in the great state of Wisconsin. Lena, the number 4, LTGOV.com. Lena, the number 4, LTGOV.com. And of course, Robert Patillo, Director of Rainbow Push Atlanta, Southeastern Regional Director, and of course, host of his show on WAOK on Sundays from 1 to 4, and C.K. Hoffler, who is the host of her show on WAOK from at 11 o'clock tomorrow, Eastern Standard Time. She's also the chair of Rainbow Push, and of course she does legal Q&A with C.K. on the Santita Jackson Show every Wednesday at 7 o'clock. And let me see, who else do I have? I think I had State Representative Lakeisha Myers. Look, it's been a great show. Hope that you all have gotten something out of it. Watch these trials. They are so important for us. Anyone who believes in freedom and justice ought to be watching this. Whatever your background, you want freedom and justice for everybody. We've got to even the scales, everybody. Get your thumb off the scales. Stop it. Power protects itself. The power cannot exist if it's not just. It won't exist. It'll cease to exist. I'm Santita Jackson. Stay right here so we can get a few more closing thoughts from our panel. And I'll see you tomorrow on the Santita Jackson Show. Love you, everybody. CK, is CK still there?
It says she's still there.
Oh, okay.
I see her there. I got to go switch things over. Santita,
No
right
worries.
back.
If you just bring everybody up.
Everyone's up.
States. Well, you know what? I don't know what else to say. There's just so much here. I was reading an editorial from, the Chicago Sun-Times that said, don't be surprised if the jury accepts Kenosha shooter Kyle Rittenhouse's self-defense claim. It seems, State Senator, are you still with us, State Senator Taylor?
I am.
It seems that we're on track for that. That it's just
I'm just going to tell you, based on the overcharging, based on the look of the panel, based on what we see in the media, I would not be surprised. I think the things that make it possible that a conviction can potentially come, and at the very least, a lawsuit that is connected to the sheriff's department and the police department in the area, is because of all of the collaborative conversations that happen before the event of, people saying that they wanted to be able to come and help. And then, as it's been said on your show, the fact that Kyle Rittenhouse was walking to the police with his hands up with the rifle to surrender, and they just let him go like he hadn't done nothing, like they hadn't seen while they were in the warlike tank that they were in, like they couldn't see that somebody was shooting somebody, like
the people didn't say he shot somebody. This guy, the one who's unbelievable.
They're screaming it as he's walking towards multiple vehicles that law enforcement had. They didn't stop him. They didn't question him. I guarantee you, if he looked like my boy was carrying a turkey down the street and got stopped by the police, taking it to a neighbor.
Absolutely. 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 I mean,
so we have some concerns, down this way. That's what I hear on the street. But to the point, that others have made, they're continuing to protest. They're continuing to show up. They're continuing to let their presence be known. And I want to say to the listeners, listen, if you can't take the time to just go and show up, then I'm saying to you to donate. Send money to help Rainbow Push and organizations that are doing the work. Send money to help candidates like myself, Lena for LTGOV.com, Lena for Lieutenant Governor of Wisconsin.com, to help me make history, to help me be the voice in the room, to help make sure that when we get done getting people elected, that we can help hold them accountable. And, they say if you're not in the room, you what? On the menu. If you ain't at the table, you on the menu. Well, I assure you, the only menu that I'm talking about is that menu that's got that banana pudding on it, and we ain't gonna be on the menu. We eating from the menu, okay?
I'm totally hearing you.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh no, but girl, look, we have to get involved, and I think that's why I wanted to bring this up today, because at some point, most of us will get jury duty, and at some point, sadly, most of us will have to deal with law enforcement. Okay, so the question is, are we going to have a fair system? I mean, I guess at the end of the day, that's what I want to know. This is so crazy. I mean, it is so clear that they're trying to let these people off. And you all ought to and just as they can let people off, they can jam people and make sure that they serve time. And that goes across the color lines, everybody. So you need to think about this. You need to be looking at these cases, and you ought to be concerned. You ought to be concerned. Pastor Yuri, are you still there?
I am still here.
What are your final thoughts?
Well, when we look at the charges, and Senator Taylor might be able to help with this, there's one charge that I don't see how they can get in acquittal because it looks to be kind of strict liability, and that's possession by a person under 18 years old. Well, it's a misdemeanor. It seems to be something that's just proven on he had a gun, he admitted he had a gun. You can prove that he was under 18 at the time he had the gun, that's it. What is the thought about any of the charges being able to stick? Granted, it's a misdemeanor based on what I've looked at in case search, but what is the posture on that charge as being maybe the one thing, however minor it is, to the grand scheme of things, tremendously disappointing? But is there a sense that that is the one thing they've got to come away with, and then they try to build from there?
You're spot on again, yes. That is something that is really, like you said, strict liability kind of situation. He had the gun. He was under 18. That's it. He's going to not be able to get around that. But it'll be considered a victory to them if he gets, if that's all he gets. It'll be an insult to the family. And I personally, believe that that's possible. I believe that some of the best support or fight that the families of the victims that were killed will have, very candidly, is going to be in civil court. Is going to be actions that they're able to pursue potentially for what law enforcement did to not only support or encourage individuals to come and to be vigilantes, but the fact that they then allowed him to walk past them. I don't know how they get around him having the gun and being underage, especially since the media is making it very known that he's a teenager. We got a 13-year-old here who has been waived to adult court in an vehicular accident case. And we have a little boy that was just selling candy bars. And the police in Greendale, Wisconsin, assaulted him and his father and end up charging his father. And just too much. So they treat our children like they're adults. But they say that this boy that came and nearly killed 3 people, killed 2 people, and harmed others, that he's a teenager. So I think you're right.
I mean, in every picture they take, every picture they show, they don't show him with that rifle. No. They show him looking like a fish out of water. What is this baby doing in this courtroom? Because he's just as cute as a button. But he did murder 2 people. He said that to his friend on the phone. He said, I just killed 2 people.
His mama was sitting in an interview room with him, and when they were sobbing, I meant to mention this while Representative Myers was on, and she was just sobbing in the room, the interview room with him and the law enforcement, and he's consoling his mama. He says, Mother, I need you, or something. He says like that, I need you now. I need you. And so she pulls herself together as they go on to proceed. Do you know how many times I talked to parents and the police have interviewed their children and haven't given Black parents the opportunity and brown parents the opportunity to be able to be present when they speak to their children? More often than not. Often than not.
You know, that's what we saw in the Central Park case. These people were separated from their parents. These boys. This is what happens all the time. And I'm saying it was wrong for it to happen to them. But you see how subjective all of this is. And I think that is what is, I'm glad it's coming out. I'm glad it's coming out. I'm glad that people are now seeing what we have been seeing for centuries, the injustice. I'm glad. Now, what are we going to do about it? I think you have said, Reverend Dr. Urey, that we need to be present. You got to show up at these courtrooms. This is what you just said, State Senator. We have got to show up at these courtrooms. We have got to show up. If we don't show up, people think that we do not care, that we're disengaged and we're going to do nothing. So think about that. Does anyone else have any closing thoughts?
Well, Santita, the only thing that I would say is that the Rittenhour case is going to set a precedent around the country. And I've got a murder trial coming up out in Walton County, Georgia in December. And I'm damn sure going to use the Rittenhour defense for my client. Because if Kyle Rittenhouse, whoever his name is, can take an assault rifle and get into what comes down to a gang altercation between rival factions, then that means that every gang case in this country should be a case of self-defense. What's the difference between the Rittenhouse Proud Boy militia fighting against the white liberals out there and the Bloods and Crips having a shootout, or the Vice Lords and the Latin Kings shooting each other? So this means that if Kyle Rittenhouse is acquitted, then I don't see how you prosecute any of those cases going forward. Because even if you invite the danger, as the standard has always been, as Rittenhouse did by basically putting himself in the middle of this altercation for no reason, if you can still claim self-defense at that point, well, then it's going to become very difficult for prosecutors around the country to prosecute any of these drive-by shooting cases or shootout cases where somebody can now claim the Rittenhour defense. Hey, look, these people were attacking me. And just because I broke the law, just because I took a weapon there, just because I showed up, doesn't mean that I have any culpability or liability for what happened thereafter. So it's a very dangerous precedent which has now been set. And I think as we see it propagate around the country, you're going to see these same Republicans who are supporting Kyle Rittenhour now being very much against this when it starts being applied by black attorneys to black clients and some of these other cases. So I got a gang shooting in December, and I'm going to print out a giant, probably 3 foot by 5 foot photo of Kyle Rittenhour and a 3 foot by 5 foot poster of my client and put them side by side. And that's going to be my opening argument and my closing argument. And I'm going to see what the Republican district attorney out there has to say about it.
Mic drop on that.
I'm going to be happy to come and be co-counsel with you on them cases because that's going to be fun.
Girl, don't you mess up your good thing. Robert has got a screw loose or two. He's crazy.
You got to have a screw loose to win from these cases.
You know what? Hey, somebody got to be able to do the fight.
And you, honey, because this joker is on Fox, and in the middle of one of your presentations, this joker pulled out a gun on the air. I just want you. Did you hear what I said, Todd? Pulled out the gun.
Well, I did, but see, that's how you know he's not a preacher. The preacher wouldn't have done it on the air.
Oh, shame! I am so embarrassed. I can't believe Reverend Dr. Yuri Esquire. Shame on you.
What? Jesus took Peter everywhere he went because Peter had his own sword. I'm going to leave that right there.
You are hurting my feelings. I thought you were, as my father would say, trained and making good sense. Y'all just as crazy. All y'all. And this woman's running for lieutenant governor. She's a nut.
I just want to say, Harriet Tubman did carry too. And she shot the people that wasn't with the program, okay?
She sure did.
Want to say, but as lieutenant governor, what I'm going to do is be in the room to make sure that people's voices are heard. I'm going to rise up constituent relations in a way that it has not been in a lieutenant governor's office. And what I hope to do more than anything is help to find places to bring us together across rural and urban Wisconsin and using agriculture as a way to bring people together with music, the creative economy, to hopefully help to grow across some of the divides that we have. Because we see them in the courtroom. We see them in these trials. We see them in the huge disparities in health and other things that we have. So Lena for lieutenantgovernor.com. That's LENA 4 LTGOV.com. Please give and help us make history and help us keep our voices heard.
Well, I can't wait to have you back. Yeah, so please.
Well, last thing for me, I'll just to piggyback on what Senator Turner said, or future Lieutenant
Your
Governor
co-counsel.
One of my favorite quotes from Harriet Tubman is she said, "The Winchester rifle deserves a place of reverence and honor in every black home." So we've always been this way. I ain't new.
Exactly. I wish I had that quote and thought of that quote when we voted for concealed carry because everybody didn't agree, but I did.
Help me. Help. Okay. I didn't realize I had the crazy panel today. Todd tries to act like he's sane, but he's not. I already know Robert is gone, and I know you already marched to the woods. Crazy. But I love you, State Senator Lena Taylor. Lena for LTGOV. Lena for the number 4, Lieutenant Governor. Lena, the number 4, LTGOV.com. Lena for LTGOV. It rhymes, everybody. Love it. LTGOV. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. And of course,
and Santita?
Yes.
One last thing. I'm sorry. I know we keep doing that to you.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to say to people, listen, every bit counts. President Obama taught us that small donations, can move a mountain. And so I don't care if it's $5, $20, $15, $1, whatever you got, I need you to put something on it. Say you got $5 on it and to do something to be able to help in this campaign. And the other thing that I just, want to remind people of is that when we are the worst in the nation for the plight of Black people, it really gives me an opportunity to not just be an advocate and a voice for people in Wisconsin, but for the plight of people of color everywhere, as an example of what can be different in this state that presently is rock bottom. So I just want to remind people, you might say, well, I'm not in Wisconsin. Well, I can't vote for her. No, you cannot, but you can invest in it. You can invest in it.
And, and we have always nationalized our campaigns. Harold Washington got support from all over the country, because he was going to be our mayor. And that's the way that has to work. And so we have to start putting, and you will find that other groups, they support their people no matter where they are. And that's important. That is what we have to learn to do. And I'm saying not just Black people. I mean, people of all backgrounds. If there is someone you believe in, if you like their program, support them. Support them. That's the way that has to work. You have to support them. People cannot run. We ask folks to run for office and all of that, and then we don't support them. We've got to do better than that, everybody. Got to do better. We got to do this. And we need her. We need her in this room, and we need her to continue to run until she gets where she really, really believes that she's got to go. And if someone has the nerve, like this woman has, to take a principled stance and run across state lines, fighting for the people, she deserves our support. I will say that. So think about that, everybody. Can't wait to have you back, State Senator Taylor. There's a lot to talk about, not just the Rittenhouse case, but I want you to come back on the show.
Oh, I look forward to coming back because we've got to talk about redistricting. We've got to talk about the national movement to take away minority districts for African Americans and instead to give us opportunity districts. And, I say to people, no, I'm not looking for that kind of opportunity. I'm looking for what is due us. And what is due us means getting districts that are minority districts instead of opportunity, because those only have to be 50% plus a little bit, versus majority districts have to be an amount that we can be elected in. Well, different.
That's why gentrification is so devastating to us, because it kills our political power. It dilutes us so. The reason Chicago became the epicenter for Black political power, and it still is because of hyper-segregation. We were packed into neighborhoods, and therefore we were able to get congresspersons 100 years ago. We were able to get representatives 100 years ago and going forward. And because we all lived in one place, we could be organized. I'm not saying that, you shouldn't live where you want to live, but let me tell you something. When we were all together, you still had wealthy Black people, you still had middle-class Black people, and you had poor. And they lived that way. But we did have political power that is now being diminished. Think about that, everybody. Think about that. And go to Lena, the number 4, LTGOV. Lena, the number 4, LTGOV. I want you to listen to Robert on WAOK every Sunday from 1 to 4 Eastern Standard Time. And of course, CK is at 11 o'clock on the same station, WAOK, every Tuesday at 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And then, of course, Legal Q&A with CK on the Santita Jackson Show. And, you get the good news from Pastor Reverend Dr. Todd Urey, Esquire, every Monday morning. And when he can, he's going to be coming on in here and weighing in on all kinds of topics. But as you can hear from all of those, from that alphabet soup of all those degrees he has, and then he's, Senior Vice President at Rainbow Push. I'm blessed to be able to catch him this morning. How about that? So I love you, everybody. Lena, thank you for being with us today. Can't wait to have you back, girly girl.
My pleasure. Always a pleasure to be with you, my sister.
My dear sister. Robert Patillo, sending you much love, my dear brother.
Appreciate it. Same to you.
Oh, love you. And Reverend Dr. Urey, sending you much love. Thank you so much for everything.
Thank you. See you on Wednesday.
Yeah, absolutely. See you, everybody. God bless you. Thank you for being with us today. Hope you enjoyed it. God bless. Bye-bye. And thank you, Devin. Thank you.
You're welcome, Santita. I'll see you around.